delighted to be here. I'm going to tell you a story today. 5 years ago, I started a business. And 4 years ago, I started building a business. So when you think about it, those are two very different statements. When I think about what I am as a marketer, I think about what do I want. And when I look at you, I'm thinking, what do they want? I think you want to leave here, and I think you want to go back to your roles, and you want to know, how do I show that I am as valuable as I am? How do you prove at the boardroom table that you, as marketers, are an intrinsic component of the success of the businesses you own or work for? That's what I want. And I'm going to tell you how I do it. Ultimately, when we think about marketing, we think about a quarter of the process. A quarter of the marketing process is that dazzling visual, that exciting narrative, those compelling engagements. It feels so good to facilitate those kinds of things for our clients, for the companies we work for our own personal brands. But I don't think that's the whole process. 5 years ago, I certainly believed that was the whole process. I opened my business and I thought, I'm going to change the world with social media. I'm sure a lot of us have been in that position. But the reality for my business was, a year in, I looked around and I said, no, I'd like sustainable revenue. I'd like consistent revenue. I'd like to build a business that's not going to last for the next 5 years while we ride this bliss wave of social media. I want a business that's going to be here for 100 years. I'm going to pass this business down, and someone's going to pass it down after me. That's what I'm building. I'm building an empire. So how am I going to build that empire, I thought to myself? Well, it's formulaic marketing. I believe that marketing is science. I believe that before we even get to the level of creativity that makes our big, juicy, creative brains scream and get excited, we got some work to do. I'm going to break down for you my formula. I'm going to tell you how I built my business, how I continue to build my business. I'm going to tell you the formula that I deploy for solopreneurs all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And the reality is, for me, it's the same formula every time. So you're going to walk away from here today, and you're going to go back to the boardroom table, or you're going to go back to the people that work for you, the people that you are actioned to inspire every single day as you walk in those doors of your business. You're going to go back to them with a plan, and I'm going to give you that plan, and together we're going to change the way the world is doing business. So what do we need to, right? We're going to do it. So what do we need to start with? Where are we beginning when we think about this plan? We need to talk about numbers. When I talk to my clients, I have a prospect sitting across the table from me. The first thing I say to them is, what am I doing here? Why are we here? Often they say, Allie, we got to market. I'm like, yeah, I agree, man, but why? And they say, well, everybody else is marketing. I'm like, yeah, they really are, but why? Well, we got to be competitive. We got to be competitive with all the other businesses that want a piece of the pie, the same pie I'm going after. I'm like, yeah, I totally agree, but why am I here? Why are we having this conversation? Ultimately, if you ask why enough times, there's this number. There's this special number that they've got in their head. I'm talking about revenue. I'm talking about return on investment. Ultimately, we as marketers have a responsibility to the businesses that we work with, and that is to make them a lot of money and to do it consistently for a long time. I want you to leave here today and be an intrinsic component of the businesses that you work with and for. Ultimately, you will be indisposable. They'll never be able to turn away from you because I know how to make that revenue consistent, I know how to predict it, and I know how to guarantee it, and you're going to know too. So we've got our revenue goal. They say, Allie, I need to grow my business by 30%. And that 30% is, I don't know, $10 million? Well, shit, that's a lot of money, right? Yeah, okay, so we got $10 million to earn. Great. Where are we going to get that $10 million from? Well, the next thing you need to do is you need to look your client in the eye and you need to say, I need to understand your business. I need to understand everything about how you bring money into these four walls. Some businesses, and white knuckle these ones if you got them, will say, I have one product or service offering and it costs exactly this much money. Well, that's pretty easy. Okay, I need to get this number of that one product or service, and I need to facilitate marketing to get exactly the right number of that one product or service. Most of my clients come to me, and I see you out there. I've got familiar faces in this crowd, and they're going to say, oh, she's talking about me. Most of you come to me and say, we have 10 silos of business with 550 products, and I have no idea what our average deal size is, so good luck, Allie. So then, right, what do? My goodness, it's a lot of math. People think that us marketers are not math people, but you and I know better. You and I know that we crunch numbers every single day. You and I know that the science of marketing is in the metrics. So we figure it out. We get busy. We sit down and we say, okay, I'm going to get this percentage of business over here and this percentage of business over here. And you arrive back to that boardroom table with how you're going to make them that money. Okay, so we're going to get it from these particular channels, but how do we get the business to those particular channels? It's a really good question. You're like, Allie, you haven't finished this process. So once I know what their average deal size is, I need to know how many deals I need to close. So how many leads do I need to get? Here's another uncomfortable conversation we're having with our clients. How successful is your sales team? What's your close percentage on the deals? You know who doesn't like to talk about their close percentage? Sales teams that are engaging a marketing agency to fix a sales problem, right? So how do we have that conversation? Gently. We talk about how we're going to make their jobs even easier. My job as a strategic marketer is to ensure that my clients have the ability to retain the most talented possible sales force they could ever find, because I am their answer to the end of cold calling. How many super talented sales professionals do you know that want to sit on the phone and cold call? Raise your hands if you know one of them. Sounds like you need new friends. Most salespeople are not interested in sitting on the phone anymore. Talented salespeople know that the sales game is about relationships. So how do we facilitate those relationships? We help them with sales enablement. Ultimately, once we understand the sales percentage, we get to the bottom end of that conversation. We're going to, for argument's sake, suggest that we have a moderately successful sales team. Because if they were wildly successful, I probably wouldn't be at the table. For argument's sake, they're closing 50% of their deals. That's great. 50% of their deals, right? With 2 people walk in the door, one of them is going to be a client. That's not bad. That's pretty good. I think we can do better. So now that we know how many sales they need, we know that their close percentage is 50%, it's time to get leads, right? How do we get leads in the door as marketers? We run conversion strategies, we do those things, but how many of those leads do we need to get? Do we think that if we have to close 50 deals, we need 100 leads? Absolutely not. We know so much better than that. There's different kinds of leads. We have marketing qualified leads and we have sales qualified leads. Sales qualified leads are the dream. They raise their hand and say, hey, business, I want to be in business with you. They're also pretty rare. Most of our leads are people who say, hey, I'm in the middle of doing my research and I came across you, but I'm, maybe interested. They're playing it cool, kind of like dating, just kind of like warming you up, deciding, dipping their toe in the water. They've swiped right. They're not sure if they're going to respond to the message. So we know we have these leads. And so we as marketers know also that marketing qualified leads come in a variety of different flavors and sizes, right? The way I describe this to my clients is with the sales funnel. We all know the sales funnel. We got top of the funnel, we got middle of the funnel, and we've got bottom of the funnel. Or, as we like to toss around tables, we got tofu, mofu, and bofu. And it's our job as marketers to be able to identify and work with tofu, with mofu, and with bofu. This is where our sales enablement strategies come in. This is where we take those metrics, that data, those analytics. Let's just think for a second. Even 10 years ago, we didn't have the amount of data at our fingertips that we have now. These used to be market studies. You used to have to pay tens of thousands of dollars and wait 18 months to know everything about your exact target demographic. I can tell you in a day. I can log in and say, this is the temperature of your business in the climate of your industry right now. That is magic. It is unbelievable. It doesn't even feel possible, but it is possible. And we can make decisions based on that information over and over again. So now that we have established that we have to get leads from the top of the funnel to the bottom, and top of the funnel is, hey, I have a general awareness. Middle of the funnel is, hey, maybe let's do a demo. And bottom of the funnel is, take my money. We know that we've got a little bit more work to do to get them even in there. So now we have to talk about something called conversion rate. How many people know what the conversion rate on their website is? 1, 2, 5, 7? I'm so excited I'm talking to you today. I think we're gonna make some big things happen when we leave here. Conversion rate is essential. Conversion rate is how many people get to your website and fill out a form and trickle down so that you can start that sales enablement marketing process. Conversion rate is how many people raise their hands and say, hey, I'm here, I'm ready. Conversion rate comes from forms on your website. It comes from those chatbots we were talking about yesterday. It comes from people, spending time on your social media and engaging with you. We can capture all of that data now. My friend John Dick is backstage, and John Dick works for a really great company called HubSpot. Who here's heard of HubSpot? Right? HubSpot. Their tagline, for the love of marketing. Right? Doesn't that speak to you? They are very good at what they do. I use a tool called HubSpot. I use other tools called Pardot, called Marketo, called Infusionsoft. How many of us are deploying marketing automation tools for our business right now? That's an okay number. Lucky for you, HubSpot's here. So ultimately, when I think about getting those leads down that funnel and I think about that conversion percentage, this is where the magic starts to happen. Because you are creative masterminds, right? I think that people think of marketers and they think of us as like the kids who drew outside the lines, or the people who have those magnetic imagery in their offices, superheroes on the wall. I actually got called out on that one. Someone came to my office, there's no superhero paraphernalia in here. I was like, no, there isn't. I don't like that shit. So, now we have to do the magic piece. So what I've told you is that we need to facilitate marketing as science. But what you need to understand now is that we have to think about all of those things that we already know how to do. We have to draw the line between the creative and the analytic. So how are we creatively marketing our businesses? I want you to tell me. What are we doing? Who's using social media to market their business? Who feels like they're getting return on investment out of that? That's great. That's wonderful news. How many of us are in the process of building a brand new website? And how many of us have had a conversation with our development team about the sales funnel and how it flows through every page of that website? Excellent. This is wonderful news. How many of us are engaged in more traditional campaign components? How many of us are buying billboards? Okay, that's a decent number. Buying advertisements in magazines, going to trade shows. And are you considering the science of those types of strategies? What I want to compel you to do is to go back to your offices and think, if I'm going to do these things, how on earth am I measuring the fact that these have been successful for my business? Do we know? So this is this science formula. This is this thing that we have to start considering. So I'm going to walk you through it the front way this time. So we have these creative concepts. This is the experience that your users are going to walk through. We have these creative concepts. Now we take these creative concepts and we plug those creative concepts into our websites. We're driving all of our traffic back to our owned media. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make on the internet. Every person who engages with your brand, we want to get back onto your website. Now that we have a website, we're acknowledging our sales funnel. We have content that drives people from the very top of that funnel to the very bottom of it on every single web page on our websites. It is a huge mistake that people make. Beautiful is something. It's really something, and it has to be beautiful, but it also has to be smart. It's okay to be a cool kid and a smart kid at the same time. That's a good thing. Yeah. I was pretty nerdy. I'm a smart kid. So now that we have them on your beautiful website and we're driving them through those conversion funnels and it feels so good because the leads are rolling in, we have this sales team we need to engage. And we're going to make that sales team real happy because we're going to lead score all those people that come in. Do we know what lead scoring is? Lead scoring is assigning numerical values based on behavior. So if people come in and they download all your content and they feel really good and they're all over your website and they're opening your emails, we lead score that individual so that we get a nice juicy number associated with them. We take that juicy number and we give it to sales and we watch them work the deal through. The neat thing about tracking every movement of an organization as well is that we as marketers can help them make strategic marketing decisions when it comes to their sales process. So it's no longer just about, am I getting the right percentage of engagement, or am I selling a product? It's also about how am I going to help you make strategic decisions about the flow of your business. We are so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. So much more powerful. So now that sales has this particular lead, we're closing. And then we're remarketing. And we're ensuring that there's an evangelism built with our brands. We're attracting, we're converting, we're closing, and then we're moving to delight. That's HubSpot's model. It's the inbound model, and it's a model that works. So what I compel you to do today, what I hope that you will take from these brief moments of my learning session, I took learning session very literally. I wanted you to walk away with something that I know you can deploy tomorrow. And I hope you deploy tomorrow. And there's a lot of local agencies here. This is going to make my sales job a lot more difficult. So, what I hope you take away from this is that you go back to your boardrooms, you take the data with you, you help them make decisions about the strategy of their business and of your business, and you build the business together. I have built an agency in 5 years. We've been inbound marketing for 4 years, and I can tell you it has completely changed my life. So I hope that I've given you something to take back with you today, and I'm very grateful that you took the time to spend with me this morning. Thank you very much.
Again, more inspiration. Are we? Okay. Before we do that, come on up.
It's me again.
Because
Hello. I'm here.
I think a Q&A is necessary. Because I think a lot of people, instead of having to wait to the very end.
Can I get a water bottle?
I'm
Thanks.
sure we can spare one of those. Hey, folks, inside your swag bags, your gift bags, you've got a selfie stick. So while we get set up here, take those out. Why not? Come on, let's have some fun.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do, come on in here, Allie. I am going to, because I think that we need a selfie with all of you here today. Okay, everybody's got to wave, though. Come on. Act alive. Come on. Come alive. Come alive. Okay, we're going to go over to this side now. It doesn't plug in. My case is too big. Let's go over to this side now. All right, now.
We did it.
Everybody in the audience, take yours out and take a photo of us up here on stage. Come on. Let's do it. Come on.
Of course I did that.
Selfie sticks are cool again.
Perfect.
All right.
You got that? Okay, that's great. That's great.
I'll remember that forever. We have a lot of great stuff inside these gift bags. We just want to encourage everybody to dig through them. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of items that are in there that have been graciously donated from a number of different sponsors and people from around the Niagara region. I don't want to call them incentives, but it will make it maybe more top of mind when you're thinking about what to do next. And you think, well, maybe I'll come to Niagara. Oh, there's a good photo. Let me take that one. I don't normally see myself by that angle. All right, enough of that. What we're going to do right now, and I'm going to do my best to moderate, okay? So we're going to fade the music down, and we're going to open up the house to you. Questions for Allie on her presentation. First one off the floor. Anyone? Yes.
So in regards to advertising on websites, so you have, Google with the 3 campaigns, the search, remarketing, display ads and all that stuff, and Facebook ads as well. Do you see any relevance for Bing advertising in Canada? Because I just moved from Dallas and I don't really know the demographics of Bing users, but have you ever had an experience with doing advertising on Bing?
No.
Oh. Sorry, I'm just geeking out because you're talking about marketing.
Great question.
Sorry.
Next.
Yes, you're down front.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Okay, the question is, when we embark on a lead scoring campaign or when we're lead scoring it as a part of a campaign, how do we take all of those pieces of data and turn that into a particular lead score? So the answer is that there is a generalization of content that should take place, especially if you're just embarking. I mean, our lead scoring, so as an agency, we've been lead scoring for 4 years, so our lead scoring is quite refined at this stage. When we start with a client, what we do is we use that tofu, mofu, bofu model, and we categorize content into those levels, and then we also categorize levels of engagement. So we would add timeline to a site, how many pages they visit, those types of things to also increase that number. So if someone was to come to my website and they were to land on my homepage, it's a very low lead score for me. Lots of people land on my homepage and don't hang out, right? So then if that person goes in and then they go right to my services page, well, that's someone who's interested in doing business with me. And then if they inquire about pricing, well, that person's raising their hand and saying like, okay, I'm pretty interested. So that would escalate their lead score kind of quickly. Other things to consider, though, are they engaging on your social media? So those are small incremental lead score jumps. Are they spending time on sites that refer to my website? Another thing that allows me to increase their lead score. So we look at all of their digital behavior, and then we increase their lead score accordingly, because ultimately, when we fill out a form on a website or we raise our hands on social media, it doesn't mean we want a phone call. So we have to make sure that we're respectful and responsible marketers. So not everyone who interacts with your content necessarily wants to talk to you, and that's a mistake a lot of people make when they get into digital marketing, is they say, well, you filled out my form, so hey, I'm Dave. Not everybody wants to hear from Dave right away. So that's really, I mean, it's a pretty high-level answer, but that's kind of the process. Does that make sense? Cool. Yeah.
You have methodologies of doing an acid test in terms of the folks who are interacting with your brand. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we use some free tools. I think that Google Analytics is a remarkable free tool that gives you an element of the pulse of your business. So if you're not using Google Analytics or if you're not looking at it every day, I compel you to start, because it's an incredibly important tool in your arsenal. But ultimately, we also deploy other analytics tools. So we subscribe to tools that allow us to get a little bit more granular in our data. You can come see me. It's a long list. You can come see me, or my team is here. There's a whole bunch of people wearing my logo all over them. They work for me, believe it or not. Yeah, there were no volunteers. So I'll answer that question in more granular detail, but the high-level answer is there's lots of tools that allow you to do a lot of really interesting things. So all of those marketing automation tools I mentioned when I spoke have some level of data collecting that allows you to see what people are doing at a given time. And it's also just being able to read those numbers and put them in the right order. So when we look at things like Google Analytics, often we're like, yeah, good website traffic, low bounce rate, and that's where we kind of end things. But we need to start looking at that user behavior flow. We need to start being really considerate of the fact that we can see where people are coming from, and we can see trends in data. And when we start comparing that data and pulling it apart and getting more granular and digging pages deep in our analytics tools, that's where the goodness comes from, and that's where we can start to make those strategic decisions. But come see me, and I'll tell you about some of the tools we use at the agency. Yeah.
Just in regards for digital advertising, when Facebook came out at the end of last year and said that their ad data that they were giving back was maybe not as accurate as they'd hoped for, is there a way to recover from that, or how do we go forward and trust Facebook again? I
mean, that sucked, right? Yeah, so what he's saying is that last year Facebook was like, oh yeah, all those metrics that we've been reporting to you were like only 80% accurate off of their advertising, which is a really frustrating thing for a lot of agencies, because a lot of us do rely on those metrics. But what we've turned to doing is creating marketing-specific URLs and then attaching data tracking tools to those specific URLs. So instead of our client's homepage or like base URL being what we use to run all of our advertising campaigns, we're using secondary URLs, and that allows us to track a lot more accurately the behavior on that URL. So that was our solution.
Hi.
We have a question right back here. Then we're going to pass the mic over to you, and you're going to be next. Thanks.
You mentioned websites having the pyramid flow on each on each page. I was just wondering if you could give examples of websites that might do this really well that just we can look at and kind of experience.
Yeah, of course I can. Is it self-inflating to send you to my clients' websites? This is an ethical question on the stage. I can tell you sites that I really admire and that I take a lot of inspiration from. So one site that I really think does a beautiful job of this is Porter Airlines. We refer to Porter a lot, and we're talking to our clients about high-level strategy decisions when it comes to integrating that type of sales conversation on a website. That would be one that I would definitely direct you to. We try to keep our site sort of like a rudimentary demonstration of what that looks like. So ours is like fairly blocked out, and there's some strategy behind that because it works, so we can show our clients the results of what that's doing. But also it kind of like lays out very simply like the process that when you look at our site, you can see how people walk down that line as they get to the finish line. So if you want kind of like a basic example that we use all the time, our site's a good example. But yeah, I would say in terms of big brands that I don't work for, Porter Airlines is one I refer to a lot. Canadian Tire I refer to a lot. Canadian Tire's got like next level navigation game on their website. It's absolutely remarkable.
We have time for 2 more questions for
yeah,
Allie.
I've got time
Really
too.
appreciate your overtime. Right down here with the ball cap.
Hi.
Firstly, amazing presentation. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Nice to
Stop
see
it. I didn't pay him even. Wow.
Nice to see a data-driven marketer focusing on that kind of stuff. So when you're dealing with smaller brands, obviously you're dealing with the large consumer brands, and they have an expectation of perfect attribution on multiple channel attribution. What if you're dealing with, you onboard a client, you give them the same pitch as you're talking about. It's a smaller client, maybe doing $1 million to $5 million a year.
Yeah.
And you onboard them,
got a few of those.
they're wanting to do, and then you sell them on the idea of, hey, here's your cost per acquisition on a client, here's the process, attribution's perfect. Now they have the expectation that you have perfect attribution. So it's like, we're not willing to invest in these channels, we're not willing to build brandness because I can't get perfect attribution, or I'm depending on events, or I'm depending on stores. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with clients now who are pushing back and saying, I'm willing to have a cost per acquisition on a client of $25 because this is the actual spend, but I'm not willing to actually pay more than that on these other channels because I can't see direct attribution in terms of the sales funnel?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It is you're right, those conversations do come up, and they're typically with smaller businesses because the budgets are smaller and the stakes are higher, and that's something that we deal with a lot, right? And I'm a smaller business, right? So, I mean, we're not a $25 million business. We're just a couple million a year. We're doing our very best. We're growing hard. We're 5 years in, and it's a struggle that I see in my business as well, so I feel you there. What I always like to say to our clients when we have those conversations about, are you choosing to show up? Are you choosing to not be there? Often I think businesses make the mistake of thinking, I can just continue doing what I'm doing, and that's no decision at all. But that is a decision. That is just as significant a strategic business decision as deciding to go for it, right? So I always like to kind of compile the industry data. We have access to that now. I think I know who you are. Are you a partner with HubSpot as well? No, but you do run an inbound marketing firm? Yeah, I saw you on Twitter yesterday. And are you from Prince Edward County? Yeah. Thank you. It's the only one I can do it for. I'm sorry, guys. I always like to, so we have access to that data. I was asking if you're a partner because you would have a lot of access to that data. And if you want to talk about that, I can talk to you about what that program looks like for us. But so what I like to do is compile the industry data and then take a look and say, this is the actual cost of not playing in this ballpark, though. So when they get there and they're considering it and they're saying, I don't know, like I think the cost per lead is going to be too high, and if my sales team can't close all of those leads, what am I going to do? I mean, the reality is that their cost per acquisition is agency plus ad spend plus internal management time. Like it's very rarely $25 a lead if you're talking to a business that's only doing $1 million in a year. There's a time investment there. Yeah, and I don't want you guys to think that I only work with large consumer brands. I do work with them. They keep the lights on, of course, but we like working with medium-sized businesses the best. They're the ones that are the most agile. There's some budget there. They're ready to run. They're the most exciting. There's passion in those walls. That's the game. That's why we do it, right? So I would suggest, I'm trying to think of a tool that you could use that would make sense for you as an agency. Like we pay to be a part of a couple think tanks so that we get access to that data, but I can tell you what those are as well, but that is not an inexpensive endeavor. I can tell you that for sure.
And we have one final question for you, Allie, then we'll
Yeah,
let you
here
go
I am.
right down here.
Hi.
Hi. Just kind of a general question. What would you say is the most ambitious project that your company has taken on, and what did it require from you and your team?
The most ambitious project we've taken on. So a couple of years ago, when we were like, it was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we were a smaller team, so we've grown a lot in the last year and a half, we undertook a project with like a massive, massive travel company. And the KPI was that key performance indicator, sorry, sometimes just rhyme off marketing speak without thinking. So the key performance indicator was that we were going to increase their online flight bookings by 25%. Yeah, that's a really big ask. We managed to increase their online flight bookings by 23%. It's a company called Flight Centre. They are headquartered in Australia. They own a flight company, and they're in Australia, and they didn't fly me down for meetings, and I still don't understand. Yeah, so that's the biggest one we took on. And honestly, that was an all-hands-on-deck initiative. So, I mean, I'm up here and I'm talking to you, and I own the agency, of course. It's my name on it. I would never do that again. I don't recommend it. And I'm here and I'm telling you these things, but ultimately it's not just me who does these things. So I sit at the table and I help guide strategy, but ultimately at this stage, you know, I'm building a business too. So I have these like incredible brains. I think like almost all of them are sitting up there, and they're all wearing big buttons today. They're like the most amazing people. They're so wonderful and they're so bright. So when I say that we undertook them, it really was a we initiative, and much more a we initiative than a me initiative. But that's the biggest one we've done. We almost hit that perfect metric, but for an agency our size, that was something. Those were long days.
How about a big hand for Allie, everybody, taking a little extra time.